I'm excited for you because this is something I'm very passionate about. And obviously you all are going through this process talking about your wedding budget. Bear with me, I'm out of breath. They drugged me from the other side of the hall to get over here in time to meet you. The big thing we want to talk about today is budget is not a dirty word. And I say this repeatedly. Budget is just another word for planning and being intentional with what you're doing with your money. I think of this so often. Millionaires did not become millionaires without planning. And even million-dollar weddings have a budget. So it's not that a budget is a dirty word. A budget is perfectly appropriate. It just happens to be something that makes us cringe because we feel like there are limits in life, but we all experience limits in everything that we do. So if we're prudent about what we're doing and being intentional with our planning, we can navigate this process and make sure that we provide categories of our budget for everything that we need. One of the things we want to talk about is the reality that things add up very, very quickly. And I'm going to scoot this over here, bear with me. Things add up very quickly. And you can come to a situation like this and go, oh, I love that venue, and oh, I love that photographer, and oh, you know, all these wonderful things. And we met a bride that was engaged last night. Well, you know, they haven't sat down to do their wedding budget yet, have they? But they come into an environment like this and they see all these wonderful things and they make these connections, but they haven't even begun to sit down and talk about the finances and who's paying for what. Keep in mind, one of the things that you need to remember is this is a perfect opportunity to build communication with your future spouse and your future in-laws. You're marrying into that family, and you're going to be with that family for the rest of your life. You're going to share holidays, you're going to share grandchildren. And in a situation like this, often everybody is a part of the conversation. Sometimes, of course, tradition states that the bride's family will provide the wedding costs. But a lot of groom's families want to contribute, and they don't know how to fit into the situation. This is prime time for you and your groom to have conversation. You two together start the process of discussion. You can find so often that couples share it with either the bride's family or the groom's family participates as well. But start having those thoughts, start having those conversations, first of all as a couple, because that builds the foundation for communication. Lay out what the expectations really are. So start talking between you and your future spouse and say, you know, mom and dad either have kind of told us we're going to do this, or he may say, mom and dad want to participate and gift something to us as well. A lot of times if you have a special family member, an aunt or an uncle, they want to do something to help, and often a monetary gift is given. So it's not a hard-line tradition of who pays for what. But I will caution you, in receiving all these gifts, all of a sudden you're going to start receiving a lot of different opinions, aren't you? Because often whomever writes the check feels as though it is their wedding. And they'll be happy to write the check if it's the way they want it. So you can really think through how you're going to negotiate the process of everybody getting along and yet still holding that wedding to be specific to who you are. Can I see the mothers of the brides? All right. How about fathers of the brides? Any here? Chances are you are participating in a lot of the bottom line. Am I correct? Obviously, you want to have the very best for your daughters. But ladies, I want you to repeat after me. This is my daughter's wedding. I am giving her the biggest gift of her life. It is a gift with no strings attached. All right, brides, look at your mothers that just said that to you. Look at your mothers. Come on, look at them. Mom, thank you for the best thing ever. I love you. Now see, that is what builds relationship. Don't get past, I want this invitation and I want that invitation and she wants these linens and I want those linens, and set all that aside and realize that it's about the gift that is being given out of true unconnected love. And remember that those relationships are the most important part of what you're doing right now. So think about that and go from there. One of the biggest things to also consider is you need to be in the thought process of researching how and where all of this is going to cost. What parts of this budget are going to be divided into what categories. There's a website I want you to jot down. It's called costofwedding.com. And this is a consumer-based survey company that has been facilitating the wedding industry, all of us, the wedding professionals, for many, many years. But you can plug in your zip code, and you can plug in local zip codes in, your general area, and see what actual brides are paying for things. This is not the cost of vendors and what they charge, but it's what brides are actually spending their money on. And it was interesting. I typed in my zip code, and then I typed in, we're kind of set out from a nearby town. I'm one zip code over from the town. I typed in our town, and the difference was about $10,000, and I thought, well, it can't be that different. But the big thing to remember is this gives you a general concept of what to expect. It even can break down different categories of what brides are spending on flowers, what brides are spending on DJ services, but keep in mind, it's average. It's an average survey process. So that means the do-it-yourself bride is also in the category of the very fortunate bride that can have a $50,000 wedding. So it's average. The big thing to remember is when you're in an environment like this and you're talking one-on-one to vendors, have a conversation. Be upfront and don't automatically say, how much do things cost? Say, I'm considering X amount of dollars for photography. What can you offer in that area? I'm considering X amount of dollars for flowers. What can you offer in that area? And have a conversation that progresses, because a lot of times vendors want to service you in every category of budget. And I'll mention this too. There are vendors that offer flowers at every budget category. There are photographers that offer photography at every budget category. And you can think about not necessarily feeling as though this photographer may not be right for you, or that florist may not be right for you, or that cake person may not be right for you. Have a conversation. We don't want you to walk away from the conversation with the wedding professional going, we just can't afford them. Talk to them about what your budget category is. Go in saying, we have this amount to work with in this category. And throughout this process, just like in budgeting for your home and your life together with your husband, by the way, I will suggest that too. Sit down and have a conversation with your future spouse about the budget process throughout your marriage, because you'll be working together on that from now on. So think about that as well. But when you talk with your vendor, talk about how there might be possibilities of what they can do in other options for you. And be very upfront. They may say, well, we can't offer anything in that particular price point, but they know all the other wedding professionals in the community. They can suggest someone that's in that price point. So be responsive to what they're offering to you and what they can provide for you, as well recommendations that they may make. But costofwedding.com, that's a good way to start with the process. One thing too that you want to think about is there are multiple ways of having things that can come into your categories that you can do yourselves. We're not saying that this needs to be a do-it-yourself wedding, because let's face it, we all can't pull that off. But there may be areas of your planning that you can provide yourself. Instead of hiring somebody to address all your invitations in a beautiful calligraphy style, pick up a calligraphy pen, learn how to do something beautifully yourself. Things like that. There are going to be areas of your wedding that you splurge in, but you have to be conservative in other areas. And you need to choose your budget breakdown in the categories that are important to you. We had a bride one time, it was the cutest thing ever. The groom was wonderfully involved in the planning, and he specifically loved wedding cakes. He thought they were the coolest thing ever, and he wanted one that looked like a tower. And he insisted that that was going to be a big part of their wedding budget. Well, they compromised, and and they realized, okay, we can shimmy money from, say, the floral budget and move it to the cake budget. And they were more conservative in their floral budget than the national average. So spend your money in the direction that is important to you. I had a couple that were big foodies, and they served lobster, and they did a lot of their floral design themselves. We provided the bouquets, and they did table centerpieces themselves. So things like that. You've got to remember that what's important to you is where you want to direct the bulk of your budget, and then you can go from there. It's also too important in talking about the conversations in everybody pitching in. Sometimes you get into a situation, we've all seen say yes to the dress, right? We've all seen that. Have you ever seen the situation where the bride is sitting down and she brought Aunt Sue and Grandma and Mom and Uncle Bob and 4 bridesmaids? Everybody had an opinion, right? But the one she kept looking to was Grandma, because Grandma was buying the dress. Well, the bride fell in love with 10 dresses and Grandma didn't care for any. But the big thing to remember is, what would have been an easier way to handle that is say, Grandma, I so appreciate this gift, and it is so wonderful. But instead of saying you're gonna buy me the dress, you can say, Grandma, I appreciate your gift of $1,000. I'll put that in the wedding budget and add to the whole bulk of the wedding. Do you see the difference there? Then all of a sudden, Grandma knows she's given a generous gift. The bride is very appreciative, but Grandma no longer has the checkbook waving in front of the bride saying, I don't like that dress. Same thing, if you have your groom's parents want to gift several $1,000s, whew, that'd be a great groom. If they want to gift a substantial amount, they might say, we'll pay for the food at the reception. Well, then all of a sudden, they feel that they have the liberty to invite as many guests as they want. But that causes conflict as well. And they feel that they have that privilege of offering that. But if you just say, we don't know what we're spending where, if you just offer your gift, we'll add it to the pot. So consider dumping everything into a wedding budget and not necessarily allowing folks to say, I'm paying for this, and I'm paying for that, and I'm paying for this. It makes for better relationship in the fact that all of a sudden the responsibility of choice returns to the bride and groom. And others can give their preferences just through the whole wedding planning process. People are going to give their preferences. They can give their preferences, but they no longer have control over your wedding. And we have to remember, any gift is gracious, whether it's grand or whether it's minuscule. Minuscule doesn't mean it's minor. It just means that it's different than someone else. And remember that no one part of this relationship that you're building in this extended family has any more love to give than another through dollar signs. So it's all about how everyone shares. One thing too to remember is, as you get closer, you're going to start getting wedding gifts. Sometimes they're monetary. So they may be an option that you can contribute to the wedding budget. Sometimes people have options of, oh, I really love this photographer and I'd really love to get this extra part of the package that they offer, but I don't have the budget for this. But if monetary gifts start coming in towards the closer time to your wedding and even after your wedding, maybe those gifts would help buy that extra album from the photographer or something like that that may not have been in your original budget. So think about things like that. As you go through the process, there are going to be little opportunities along the way that you'll be able to have a little addition here and there through the process, and it can add to your overall budget. But number one, be upfront with your family members. Build relationship through that and realize that you've got a lifelong relationship with all these people. Number two, be upfront and honest with your vendors. They can serve you better when they know where you're coming from and what they can provide for you and your price point. And number three, look around every corner for every aspect that you can add to your budget.